Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini. We continue with the great encyclical Libertas of Pope Leo XIII. We left off on page 9, paragraph 16. Moreover, read, Anthony. Page 9, paragraph 16.
Moreover, besides this, a doctrine of such character is most hurtful both to individuals and to the state. For once ascribed to human reason the only authority to decide what is true and what is good, and the real distinction between good and evil is destroyed. Honor and dishonor differ not in their nature, but in the opinion and judgment of each one. Pleasure is the measure of what is lawful, and, given a code of morality which can have little or no power to restrain or quiet the unruly propensities of man, a way is naturally open to universal corruption. With reference also to public affairs, authority is severed from the true and natural principle whence it derives all its efficacy for the common good. And the law determining what is right to do and avoid doing is at the mercy of a majority.
So what errors is he dealing with? You can shut that off. What particular errors again?
That pleasure dictates.
No, 2 words. Whatism and whatism.
Liberalism.
No. In paragraph 15, he's still continuing the train of thought.
Naturalism and rationalism.
Yes. Naturalism, I don't believe anything above nature. Rationalism, I don't believe anything.
They can't be proven by human reason, or they can't be comprehended or understood by human reason.
Right. So, it's pygmyism. That's really what it is. Pygmies, little pygmies that I don't believe anything outside my little box. It's just really ignorance. It's truly stupidity, right? It's truly darkness of the mind. Darkness of the mind. That's the pride of modern man. They think they're being free and liberated, but they're actually dumber and darker. It's the faith that enlightens and broadens man's mind to a truth above us. And let's face the facts. It's the incarnation, that God became man, that developed the sciences. That you can actually, that matter is good. Remember, there was the belief that matter is evil, and you have to stay away from it and condemn it. But with the incarnation, man sees, no, matter is good. You can study it. You can develop it. You can improve. So if the Western world improved its technology, its engineering, its medicine, it's because of the incarnation. And look at the societies that are still locked in Hinduism, in Buddhism. Especially if you come back, you're punished in the next life as a grasshopper, or in this life. It's true, in India, many of the priests say this. People will just walk by, beggars, people starving, drinking, begging just for a little cup of water. They'll walk right by and don't care because they deserve it, because what? They're getting punished in this life for
Sins of the past life.
being bad when they were a bad grasshopper or cat or dog.
It's called the doctrine of reincarnation.
Yes. So you see, it's a cruel system. And it's the only countries that developed in engineering, science, architecture, and so forth were the countries influenced by Catholicism, by the incarnation. We don't even realize how much the incarnation has done for society. Right? But even as St. Thomas Aquinas says, even man who can abuse and pervert everything can abuse and pervert even the incarnation. The fact that God became man, and they will attack that even. All right, so authority severed from the true and natural principles, whence it derives all its efficacy for the common good. And the law determining what is right to do and avoid doing is at the mercy of the majority vote. Yes, this whole idea that authority comes from,
The people.
yes, and not from.
God.
Continue, Anthony. Now read distinctly, louder and clearer. You tend to mumble.
Now, this is simply a road leading straight to tyranny. The empire of God over man and civil society once repudiated, it follows that religion, as a public institution, can have no claim to exist, and that everything that belongs to religion will be treated with complete indifference. Furthermore, with ambition designs on sovereignty, tumult and sedition will be common amongst the people, and when duty and conscience cease to appeal to them, there will be nothing to hold them back but force, which of itself alone is powerless to keep their covetousness in check.
Yeah, so in other words, you're much better, by the way. In other words, the police state. Liberalism, rationalism, naturalism, authority of the people leads to the police state. That's what he's saying. Is he right?
Yes.
Absolutely right. We've seen it. Go on.
Of this we have almost daily evidence in the conflict with socialists and members of other seditious societies who labor unceasingly to bring about revolution. It is for those, then, who are capable of forming a just estimate of things to decide whether such doctrines promote that true liberty which alone is worthy of man, or rather, pervert and destroy it.
Yes, paragraph 17. Michael, go on.
There are indeed some adherents of liberalism who do not subscribe to these opinions, which we have seen to be fearful in their enormity, openly opposed to the truth and the cause of most terrible evils. Indeed, very many amongst them, compelled by the force of truth, do not hesitate to admit that such liberty is vicious, nay, is simple license, whenever intemperate in its claims to the neglect of truth and justice, and therefore they would have liberty ruled and directed by right reason, and consequently subject to the natural law and to the divine eternal law. But here they think they may stop, holding that man as a free being is bound by no law of God except such as he makes known to us through our natural reason. In this, they are plainly inconsistent, for if, as they must admit, no one can rightly deny, the will of the divine lawgiver is to be obeyed, because every man is under the power of God, and tends toward him as his end, it follows that no one can assign limits to his legislative authority without failing in the obedience which is due. Indeed, if the human mind be so presumptuous as to define the nature and extent of God's rights and its own duties, reverence for the divine law will be apparent rather than real and arbitrary. An arbitrary judgment will prevail over the authority and providence of God. Man must, therefore, take his standard of a loyal and religious life from the eternal law, and from all and every one of those laws which God, in his infinite wisdom and power, has been pleased to enact, and to make known to us by such clear and unmistakable signs as to leave no room for doubt.
Okay, pause. That's a wonderful saying right here. God has been pleased to enact, which are clear and unmistakable signs that leave no room for doubt, that of his revelation, his church, his Catholic truth. Everything in the faith is public, knowable, and reachable, and visible often. So, for example, the motives of credibility applied to the Catholic faith, anyone can see them, which are the prophecies fulfilled and what's the other motive of credibility?
Miracles that are
Yeah, miracles, endless miracles. Endless miracles in the Catholic Church. Go on.
And the more so, because the laws of this kind have the same origin, the same author as the eternal law, are absolutely in accordance with right reason, and perfect the natural law. These laws it is that embody the government of God, who graciously guides and directs the intellect and the will of man, lest these fall into error. Let then that continue to remain in a holy and invaluable union, which neither can nor should be separated, and in all things, for this is the dictate of right reason itself. Let God be dutifully and obediently served.
Okay, read on, Tony. 18.
There are others, somewhat more moderate though, not more consistent, who affirm that the morality of individuals is to be guided by the divine law, but not the morality of the state, for that in public affairs the commands of God may be passed over, and may be entirely disregarded in the framing of laws.
Okay, so he's touching on various angles of liberalism, right? And this one claims to be more moderate, that God's laws apply to individuals, but don't apply them to the state. The state doesn't have to obey God's laws. But is the state a creation of God?
Yes.
Does being a creation of God, must it obey him?
Yes.
Of course. Okay, read on, Tony, but slow down a little bit. You're going 90 miles an hour. Just drop down to 70.
Yes, Father. Hence follows the fatal theory of the need of separation between church and state.
Fatal theory. What's that mean? Fatal.
Deadly.
Deadly theory of what?
Separation between church and
Okay,
state.
now he's going to hammer on the big, huge, monstrous error of our time. Go on.
But the absurdity of such a position is manifest. Nature herself proclaims the necessity of the state, providing means and opportunities whereby the community may be enabled to live properly, that is to say, according to the laws of God. For since God is the source of all goodness and justice, it is absolutely ridiculous that the state should pay no attention to these laws, or render them abortive by contrary enactments. Besides, those who are in authority owe it to the commonwealth not only to provide for its external well-being and the conveniences of life, but still more to consult the welfare of men's souls in the wisdom of their legislation. But for the increase of such benefits, nothing more suitable can be conceived than the laws which have God for their author. And therefore, they who in their government of the state take no account of these laws abuse political power, by causing it to deviate from its proper end and from what nature itself prescribes.
Yes, so any government leader, any president, any political leader who passes laws against God's laws, against the commandments, is he using his authority for the purpose for which it is made?
No.
What's he doing?
Abusing.
Terribly abusing it, usurping it. And yeah, they'll be heavily judged for this abuse. And this goes for men in the authority of the state, but this also goes for men in the church. Bishops who abuse their authority, or even popes who use it to counter the faith, to crush the faith, or diminish it, or compromise it. They will also answer to God. Right? And notice he doesn't say they lose their authority. Right? Well, we're going to read on, but Pope Leo XIII does not say if a political leader passes laws against God's laws, he's no longer a political leader. He loses his office. You never find that. And that's the same in the church. Right? Go on.
And what is still more important, and what we have more than once pointed out, although the civil authority has not the same proximate end as the spiritual, nor proceeds on the same lines, nevertheless, in the exercise of their separate powers, they must occasionally meet. For their subjects are the same, and not infrequently they deal with the same objects, though in different ways.
Okay, who are the same subjects church and state deal with?
The people.
Yes, people's families, yes, communities, etc. And not infrequently do they deal with the same objects, though in different ways. What are some of these two main objects? church and state have to deal together with?
Education of youth, marriages.
Yes. Marriage and education of youth. Very, very important. So you can see up in Quebec, you see the footprint of once a Catholic country with churches everywhere. Statues used to be more frequent. Public crucifixes were more common up there. And statues of Our Lady everywhere. You could see
saints everywhere.
And even on the Parliament building, the government building, which we didn't have a chance to look at yesterday, but one of these times we go up there for Mass, we'll stop by the Parliament building, and you can see the first martyr, a Franciscan priest, Father Nicholas Vial. You can see St. John de Brebeuf. You can see Blessed Mary of the Incarnation on the government building. They honor the saints of their country. And St. Francois de Laval, of course, is up there. So, this should be normal. And then the laws of Quebec used to be Catholic. They used to have the Sacred Heart of Jesus on the flag. So, but after Vatican II, corruptio optimi pessima, which means
The corruption of the worst is the best. I mean, the corruption of the best is the worst.
yes,
I said it backwards.
the corruption of the best is the worst. The corruption of the once great, glorious Catholic Quebec country, which in Quebec City, you saw that seminary. It's huge. How many stories high would you say it is?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At least 5.
Oh, more than that. More than that. 5 stories, 6, 7, 8 stories of cells, classrooms, library, chapel for the seminary. It used to have hundreds of seminarians. And it was a good seminary because, as I told you the other day, Father Charles de Connick was one of the priests and professors there. And he has a famous treatise, all Thomistic, on the common good. It's a very great and famous treatise. And I used to have it, and it's in my collection of books, probably in the monastery somewhere on the shelves. But it's a precious study, in Latin, of course, on the common good, based on purely St. Thomas. So it used to be a good seminary, and they used to put out seminarians all over the world, priests all over the world, from Quebec. So you see the footprint, and it's quite still fresh in a way, because still there's old nuns, and once they die out, all those buildings and convents will be sold off. But there's still enough old ones where they can't sell them off yet. So the church and the state working together, it's so normal. It's so normal that when it actually happens, it's like having the shoe that fits. How did we get away from this in the first place? Right? Go on.
Whenever this occurs, since a state of conflict is absurd and manifestly repugnant to the most wise ordinance of God, there must necessarily exist some order or mode of procedure to remove the occasions of difference and contention, and to secure harmony in all things. This harmony has been not inaptly compared to that which exists between the body and the soul for the well-being of both one and the other, the separation of which brings irremediable harm to the body, since it extinguishes its very life.
Yeah, you pull the church out of the state, the guiding of Christ the King over the government laws and decisions, it kills the state, kills the nation. And so in this light, you see how deeply twisted, perverse, evil beyond imagination is the passing of laws to kill your own babies. It's committing suicide of a nation, and it really is. There are more deaths than births in England, France, Italy, once Catholic countries, Quebec, and I think even in the United States, there are more deaths than births. It's frightening. And so you give it 20 years, they will be Muslim, because there won't be any British, French, Italian new blood. They're just going to get old and die out. But this is all this contraception, which should also be banned. Birth control should be banned. The selling of birth control should be banned by the state. But it's sold like popcorn in all the stores. It's a real crime. Pornography should be banned by the state. But they want the pornography. They want the morals rotted. They want the people rotted. And the children especially. Father Ruiz sent me a documentary film on the recent decisions of the EU, the European Union, and they want pornography, they want the children to be exposed to pornography at age 2 already, 2nd grade, 3rd grade already, with sex education by 3rd, 4th grade, and they teach them how to commit solitary sins, and just really perverse. I mean, these people should be publicly shot in a real trial, in a real execution, approved by the state, because it's such a crime. It is an unbelievable crime to rot the children, but it's deliberate. And then by the time they're young teenagers, they tell them where they can get abortions, what kind of birth control they can use. This is so criminal. It's hard to believe. The anger of God is so patient, so patient.
I heard a quote before, it's pretty striking, because pornography is free, you can just look it up on the internet. And it says that porn is free because you pay with your soul.
Yeah. Yeah, the devil knows that. He's good at that. Yes, that's right. He gets a soul in mortal sin. And think of poor little children who are at a young age already exposed to this. Careless parents who let them have their cell phones in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. They already have cell phones, right? And all this is accessible. And as I told you, a family recently finally decided to homeschool because their kids, the girl is, one of them is 10 years old. It's so perverse already. What the kids show each other, the way they touch each other, and the teachers they have to teach. One guy has a rainbow bracelet, a picture of his boyfriend on the desk, and these people are teaching the children. It's a deliberate, systematic perverting of the young. And you know what our Lord says about this? St. Alphonsus compares it to a mother cub. When someone tries to attack the cub, the mother bear, what happens to her? Does she run away?
No, she mauls them to death.
Yeah, it's war, and she'll kill. She will kill. So that's what St. Alphonsus says about our Lord. Once people corrupt the children deliberately, he has a vengeance that is vicious, terrible, and quick. Yeah, I wrote down here there was a movie star. Let me see if I can find the stories. A movie star who boasted about her 12 abortions.
Is this the one that got in the car accident?
Yeah. And she got in a car accident in such a way that every piece of metal and steering wheel just cut right into her. So she was basically chopped up the way she chopped up her 12 babies. So she died the way she boasted of treating her children. Very, very eye-opening. And then the other one was a politician who was all for pro-abortion, passing abortion laws. And he crashed. His plane crashed right near a children's playground, near a school. So, anyway. Yeah, here it is. Bob Casey Sr., the governor of Pennsylvania, never stopped abortion, but promoted it. He died in a plane crash in a school play yard, but where no children were harmed. So his plane crashed right in the children's playground. And he was all abortion. So the name of the actress, no, it was actually not an actress. It was a newscaster. Jessica Savage was her name. In a newslate in Philadelphia in the 80s, she killed her baby at 4 months and boasted about it, and died in a car crash in a pond, drowned like her baby. So Jessica Savage, yeah, she, there's ways they drown the baby as well in the womb with shots, syringes. Jane Mansfield, an actress who wore her scapular but mocked God. She died driving in Kentucky, hit by a truck in front of them, and their heads were cut off in the accident. The scapular was found in a tree. So she mocked God and wore her scapular for some reason, but it didn't save her at that hour because her heart was mocking God. Dolly Sinatra performed abortions in Italy. That's Frank Sinatra's mother, I think. She performed abortions in Italy. Then in 1910s and 20s and 30s, she was flying in a what is this? I have to read my own writing. She was flying in a Cessna plane, and it crashed in a tight space, like the baby she killed. So this is the case. So Dolly Sinatra, this is the mother of Frank Sinatra, performed abortions in Italy in the 20s, 30s, and 10s, 20s, and 30s. And then while flying in a red Cessna plane, she crashed and died crushed the way she had crushed all those babies by her own hands.
I think it was even illegal at that point. I think they were doing it secretly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, legal or illegal, it's wicked. So you see what the Pope is saying here. It's so normal that the state respect God's law. And the laws of the government, the laws of the country, uphold the Ten Commandments. Even that would just transform a whole nation, right? Just think of it. If the state did its duty, banned abortion, banned contraception, banned pornography, just that alone, and banned divorce, those things, which are all according to God's law, right? You would have big families, lots of children, healthy families. It would be just, already that would be so different for the nation, right? And you have to admit, a woman who has an abortion, it does affect her. It affects her whole being. And there's something, if she's not repentant, they just become hard and ugly in their old age. If they are repentant, then their hearts soften and they try to do much good. Anyway, all right, where did we leave off, Tony?
19.
Okay.
19.
Pick it up, Andres, 19, paragraph 19, page 11.
To make this more evident, the growth of liberty ascribed to our age must be considered apart in its various details. And first, let us examine that liberty in individuals which is so opposed to the virtue of religion, namely, the liberty of worship as it is called. This is based on the principle that every man is free to profess as he may choose any religion or none.
Okay, so this is even more serious than separation of church and state. This is a liberty of conscience, liberty of worship. And this is one of the sacred, inviolable rights on which the modern democracies are founded on. And it's a lie, it's a complete charade, it's a complete sand that our Lord speaks of. So what's the Pope going to say this? Everyone is free to believe what they want? Is he going to say like Pope Leo the 14th? Oh, you can, we have to, diminish Catholic doctrine to please the schismatics and try to make peace and unity with them? Are you serious? 20, go on.
But assuredly, of all the duties which man has to fulfill, that, without doubt, is the chief and the holiest, which commands him to worship God with devotion and piety. This follows of necessity from the truth that we are ever in the power of God, and ever guided by his will and providence. And having come forth from him, we must return to him. Added to which, no true virtue can exist without religion. For moral virtue is concerned with those things which lead to God, as man's supreme and ultimate good. And therefore religion, which, as St. Thomas says, quote, performs those actions which are directly and immediately ordained for the divine honor, close quote.
So religion pertains directly to divine honor, right? And religion in St. Thomas falls under prudence, justice, fortitude, or temperance.
Justice.
Yes.
Religion.
Religion is a virtue of justice, meaning it's not a question of do you feel like worshiping God? Do you feel you need to pray? No, it's a duty of the state and individual to worship God. And the proof is, look at the pagans. Look at Rome. Did they believe in separation of church and state?
No.
Did any of these dynasties before Christ, although pagan and satanic, did they believe in separation of church and state?
No.
This is a modern perversity that's only of the modern world. Do you see how perverse this is? How twisted it is? That even the ancients wouldn't build a city, they wouldn't go to battle, they wouldn't plant a field of crops without reference to the gods. Granted, they're devils, but they have a union of church and state. The principle is always there. The only time this principle is broken is by the Freemasonry. We will not have Christ reign. Separation of church and state is so perverse, so twisted, so wrong. And yet, this is one of the sacred, inviolable, principles of modern democracy. And it's satanic. It is truly satanic. And, many Catholics, even traditional Catholics, are not comfortable with this. They don't like to hear this. Oh, it smacks of lacking in patriotism. Well, you smack of lacking patriotism. To God. Is not God above our nation? Right? So, wow. We need to become Catholic again.
Yes, it's
All of us. We're so soaked in the modern world, we've got to get these Catholic principles in our mind and blood and convert ourselves. Yes.
Because I remembered that shortly after, this beginning of the decay of Christendom, because when people lived in France or in Italy, they all didn't see themselves as first Italian or first French, but as first Catholic,
That's
and
right.
then French, and then Italian.
That's correct.
But I think the way that they started to degrade that was just pump into them this nationalistic patriotism, where they see themselves as first belonging to their own land,
Yeah.
and then being members of the church.
Yes, that's correct. That's called the nationalism, the state above the church.
Yes.
And Father Dennis Fay, he goes details into this.
And Americans,
Mm-hmm.
Americans do have that problem. We have that problem as a people, that we
Yeah.
tend to put the nation first.
Which Bishop Williamson once said wisely. He said, although nationalism, in the light of the medieval world of united by the Catholic faith, the supranational union of the church, the Catholic Church and the faith, Bishop Williamson did make this point that it was a corruption, this nationalism, and this fighting and the lack of the union of the mystical body to national boundaries being specified and fighting each other. But he said, nationalism is still healthy. And it's still a healthy reaction against the globalism, which is what the enemies of Christ are really pushing to. So you could justly argue that, England standing for England, America standing for America, Canada standing for Canada, and Canadian and French loving their French patrimony in their country is still healthy compared to this global one worldism. So that's where Bishop Williamson, I think he made a very good point there, that nationalism in the view of this down degrading one world globalism is still a healthy stand opposing that. And that's why that's why who's the president of Hungary right now?
Oh, what's his name? I know what you're talking
Oregon or Orberon, something with an O. So these are still decent men that are still standing on some true healthy nationalism. Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
about.